There's a cask of water lashed amidships and a tin dipper hanging on a nail beside it. And every man in this boat is watching that dipper the way a starving dog watches a hand near its bowl. That dipper is the only thing keeping them alive. It is also the thing that will turn them, one by one, into something their own mothers would not know. I have seen the Ration kill more crews than any storm ever did. Not by failing them, but by working exactly as it was meant to. I know how backward that sounds. Stay with me. Because the daily ration is two things at once, and a man who does not understand both will not come home from a long enough hunger. It is the thing that keeps a crew alive when the provisions run thin, and the boat is small, and the nearest land is a rumor. And it is the thing that, given enough empty days, takes good men, men who would have died for one another at the start, and sets them watching each other's throats. The ration saves the body. And then, slow and quiet, it goes to work on the soul. But the men who came home whole, the ones who stepped off a starving boat thin as rope and still men, they had one thing the others did not. It was not more water, it was a rule that costs nothing, that any crew can keep, and that almost no crew keeps once the hunger gets deep enough. I'll show you exactly what it was. But first let me tell you who I am, and why I have doled out water by the dipper with my own hand and watched what it does to a man's eyes. I spent the better part of my life in the smallest boats a man takes onto the open sea, the whale boats, and worse, the boats you end up in when the ship is gone and there is nothing under you but a few planks and the day's ration. I have been the man holding the dipper. I have measured out water by the swallow to men I had laughed with a week before, and felt them hate me for it, and known they were right to, because the dipper in my hand was their whole life and I was the one, deciding how much of it they got. There is no lonelier work at sea. The men who taught me what I know did not learn it from any book. They learned it the way the sea teaches everything, by being in a boat where the rule broke, and surviving it, and never being able to forget what they saw. There was a mate on one of my early voyages, a hard old man with a flat voice, who had one law about the ration he would not bend for any soul aboard. The man who divides the share is the last to take his own. That was the heart of it. When the biscuit was split, or the water poured, the man whose hands did the dividing chose his portion dead last, so that every cut he made knowing he would be left with whatever the others did not want, and the officers ate after the crew, not before. He never explained why. He was not a man for explaining. But I came to understand that he was not protecting the food. He was protecting something far more fragile than food, and far harder to get back once it was gone. So hold this, and keep hold of it through everything I tell you now. How does the fairest thing on a starving boat, the daily ration, the one thing meant to keep every man equal and alive, turn brothers into monsters? That is the riddle. Sit with it, because the answer is the darkest thing I know about the sea and about men, and when it comes it will tell you something about yourself you may not want to hear. Let me take you into a boat where the provisions are running out, because that is where it begins, and it begins so quietly that no one sees it start. At the first, the ration is a mercy and everyone knows it. The water is short, but it is shared. Every man his exact measure, and the fairness of it is a comfort. A man takes his swallow and passes the dipper, and there is something almost holy in it. We are all in this together. We will all get the same. We will all live or we will all die, and no man will be left behind. That is the ration at its best. It is the rule that says you are still a crew, still men, still bound to one another. For a while it holds. Then the days stretch. The cask goes lighter. The measure shrinks from a swallow to a mouthful, to a wetting of the lips. And the thing that was a comfort begins, very slowly, to become a torment. Because now every man is hungry and thirsty all the time, all the way down, and the dipper is no longer a mercy. It is the measure of exactly how much suffering each man must bear, handed out, twice a day where everyone can see. And that is when the watching starts. A man begins to count. He counts his neighbor's swallows. He is sure, certain, that the fellow across from him got a fuller dipper than he did, that the man doling it out tipped his hand, that somewhere a share is going wrong and it is going wrong against him. He says nothing at first, but he watches, and the man next to him watches. And the man with the dipper feels every pair of eyes on his hands and knows that whatever he does, half the boat will believe he cheated them. The fairness that held them together becomes the thing they suspect, and suspicion in a starving boat is a fire in dry grass. And the man with the dipper, the one charged with the fairness of it all, suffers a thing the others never see. He cannot win. Pour generously, and the water runs out the sooner, and they will curse him for a fool who killed them with his kindness. Pour mean, and they curse him for a tyrant hoarding their lives in his fist. He measures out each share, knowing every soul in the boat is doing the same sum in his head and coming up with a different answer, and that on the day the water runs dry, they will remember every dipper he ever poured as proof of what he stole from them. I have held that dipper. There is no rest in it, and no thanks, and a man does it only because someone must, and because the day no one will do it fairly is the day the boat is already lost, whether the water is gone or not. Then comes the night work. A man wakes in the dark with his throat like a kiln, and the cask is right there, an arm's length away, and everyone else is sleeping, or seems to be, and the whole of his body is one single scream for water. And some men, good men, men who would have been ashamed to the bone of it on dry land, some men reach for that cask in the dark and take what is not theirs, a swallow, just a swallow. No one will know, but the cask is finite, and a swallow stolen in the dark is a swallow taken out of another man's mouth. And that other man is going to come up short tomorrow, and he is going to look around the boat and wonder which of his shipmates did it to him. I have watched a man drink seawater in secret in a boat like that, certain the salt would not touch him the way it touched weaker men. And I have told you in another telling what the sea does to the man who drinks it. But this is the part one did not tell you. He did not only kill himself, he spent his last days mad and raving and grasping. And a raving man in a starving boat is a danger to every soul in it, because he no longer keeps the rule, and the rule was the only thing holding the rest of them back from doing what he was doing. I will tell you of one boat, because it is the one I have never been able to set down. We were 11 when the ship went, and we held the rule a long while, longer than most. But there was a man among us, a strong man, a good hand, one I had trusted with my life, on the lines 100 times, who could not bear the measure. One gray dawn, the man on watch caught him at the cask with the dipper in his fist, drinking, and it was not his first time, for the water had been running shorter than the days could account for. And I watched 11 starving men who that very morning had still been a crew, rise up in that pitching boat and very nearly tear him apart with their bare hands over a few swallows of water, not because they were wicked, but because he had broken the one thing that was keeping them men, and some animal part of them knew it, and the knowing made them wild. We did not kill him. We were closer to it than I have ever been to anything in my life, and what I have never forgotten is not how close we came. It is how much of me wanted to. Here is where most of the dying of the soul is done, and I want you to stay with me, because the worst of it is still ahead, and you need to have walked the whole road to understand it. Once the watching starts, and the stealing starts, and the trust goes, once a man stops believing that the share will be fair, something gives way in him that is very hard to name and impossible to put back. He stops being a member of a crew and starts being one animal among other animals, each one calculating. And the terrible thing, the thing the old mate understood, is that this is not weakness, it is not bad men showing their true colors, it is what hunger does to anyone, given enough days. Hunger does not make a man cruel. It strips away, one strand at a time, the thing that was holding the cruelty back. And under that thing there is something in every man, in you, in me, that will do whatever it must to take one more breath, and it does not care who has to stop breathing for it. Now I will tell you the answer to the riddle, and I will not soften it, because the men who learned it could not soften it either. When the food is gone entirely, and the water is gone, and the boat has been adrift long past the point where any man should still be alive, there comes a moment that sailors spoke of in low voices for hundreds of years, when they spoke of it at all. The ration runs out, and then the crew must decide whether they will all die together, or whether one will die so that the rest may live. And in boat after boat, across the long centuries of sail, starving men did the thing that the word monster was made for. They cast lots, they drew straws, or marked a coin, or wrote on scraps, and the man who drew the short one was killed by the others, and the others lived on what was left of him. They called it the custom of the sea, And it was not whispered scandal. It was an understood thing, a known arithmetic, so accepted that for the better part of 200 years no court in any seafaring nation would hang a man for it. Because every judge knew it might one day have been him in that boat. Only once, late, in my own century, did the law finally turn on it. 2 men off a little wrecked yacht were put in the dock for doing in their cabin boy. A lad of 17, already half gone from thirst and from drinking the seawater, and living on him until they were found. By some accounts, no lot was ever drawn at all. The boy was simply the weakest, and so the boy was chosen. The court called it murder, the first time in all the long history of the sea that it ever dared to. But the country did not call it murder. The people sent those accused men food and money and well wishes, and the law, ashamed of its own verdict, set them free again after only a few short months. Because every soul in that land with salt in their blood understood the thing the judges would not say aloud, that it might have been them in that boat, and that no man living truly knows what he would do in it until the day it has him. And here is the part that I have never been able to put down, the part that is the true bottom of this whole story. The lots were supposed to be fair. That was the entire point of them. That even at the very end, even with the rule of the ration in ruins, men would reach for one last rule, one last scrap of fairness, and let chance and not strength decide who died. A noble idea, a last flicker of the men they had been. But it was a lie, and the men in those boats knew it was a lie. Because when you read the accounts, when you follow what truly happened in boat after boat, the lots were rarely fair at all. The strong did not draw the short straw. The weak did. The boy went before the man, the sick before the sound, the stranger before the shipmate. Somehow, when the casting was done, it was always the smallest and the weakest and the most alone who had drawn the fatal lot. Because the strong men holding the straws were no longer the men they had been, and a starving man's hand finds a way to come out how it needs to come out. And the men who did these things and lived, understand this before you judge a single one of them, were not brutes, and they did not walk away free of it. They carried it. I knew a man once who had come home from such a boat, a quiet, decent, gentle man, who could not abide the sight of a laden table for the rest of his days, who would rise and leave any room where the talk turned to hunger, and who woke his whole house some nights with sounds I will not put into words. The sea gave him back his body and kept his sleep forever. That is the true wage of it. The monster does not stay out there in the boat when the rescue comes. It climbs aboard and comes home with the man who fed it, and it sits at his table the rest of his life. That is the answer to the riddle. The ration did not turn good men into monsters by failing. It turned them into monsters by teaching them, slowly, over many empty days, that the rule could be bent. First a little, a swallow in the dark, then more, then all the way, until the last rule of all, the one that was supposed to make even cannibalism fair, became just another way for the strong to eat the weak and tell themselves it was chance. So now you understand what the old mate was guarding, when he made the man who divides the share take his own last. He was not protecting the water, he was protecting the rule, the only thing standing between a crew and the animal underneath. Because the rule is not about the food, it never was. The rule is the thin rope that holds the strong man back from the weak one. And the whole long discipline of the ration, every fair measure, every honored share, exists for one reason: to keep that rope from parting on the day the hunger gets deep enough to test it. A crew that holds the rule when it is easy is building the habit that might, just might, hold it when it is the only thing left. Why does no one tell you this? Why is it not the first thing every man who goes to sea is taught? Because the men who lived through it did not speak of it. A man who has come home from that kind of boat does not sit by a fire and tell the tale. He carries it, quiet, for the rest of his life, and most often it goes into the ground with him. The knowledge does not pass because the shame of it is too great. And so every generation of seamen has had to learn it fresh, in the boats, too late. The boats that kept the rule came home with thin, haunted, living men. The boats that let it go came home, when they came home at all, as something the rescuers spoke of afterward only in whispers. And the difference between the two was never how much water they started with. It was whether they held the rule after the water was gone. So here is what the old hands knew. and what I am handing to you now, plain as I can make it, because a day may come when you need it and there will be no one left to tell you. The rule of the ration is this: one man divides the share, and another man chooses first, and the man who divided takes whatever is left, so that fairness is built into his own hands, and he cannot cheat without cheating himself. The one in command eats and drinks after his crew, never before, because the men will bear anything from an officer who is hungrier than they are, and forgive nothing from one who is not. The daily measure is fixed, and it is honored, even when every nerve in the body is screaming for more, because the day you take tomorrow's water today is the day the rope starts to fray. No man eats or drinks ahead of his share, and a man's share is sacred. To take another's is not theft of food, it is the cutting of the one rope that is holding the whole boat together, and a crew that understands that will guard the rule harder than they guard the water itself. They did not become monsters because the sea was cruel. The sea only ever took away the food, the way it takes everything, without malice and without mercy. What the sea showed them was not a monster that came from outside. It was the one that had been inside all along, inside every man in that boat, inside you, inside me, held back its whole life by nothing more than a thin rope of rule and habit and shared fairness. And when the hunger finally pulled that rope apart, the thing underneath was not brave and it was not just, it was hungry, and it ate the smallest first. So tell me, down in the comments, what is the rule your people lived by? The one that seems like nothing when times are easy, but that you suspect is the only thing that would hold when everything else was gone? Put it below. I read every one. The men who learned this learned it too late to pass it on, and that is exactly why it must be passed on now, by anyone who will listen. Next time, I'll tell you about a quieter killer than hunger, the slow one the officers could watch take a crew apart, week by week, a thing they could see coming for months and could not stop, and the cure for it that sat in the ship's own stores the whole time, if any man aboard had only known how to use it. Until then, mind your fire, and never trust hunger to leave a man the way it found him.